Welcome to Unite Now, where we bring unity to you, wherever you are.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Unite Now. Thank you for joining us. My name is Amel Negra, and I'm a technical evangelist for the EMEA region at Unity. In this session, we will be covering how to achieve faster level design iteration with ProBuilder and Polybrush. So let's get started. Here's what we will talk about today. First, I'm going to give an overview of the tools I will be using. Then we will talk about the compatibility with the render pipelines. And then we will dive into the demo, where we are going to start with a quick overview of ProGrids for grid snapping, then ProBuilder from prototype to polished level. And by this I mean, on prototype stage, when we start the level creation, that we will not stop there. We will show how the level would look like after the integration of the final assets, and then use ProBuilder again to iterate on the level design at that stage of the production. Then using Polybrush, we will do some color and texture blending, mesh sculpting, and object scattering. Last but not least, we will create a custom shader that relies on the vertex color using shader graph. And then we will wrap up. So let's start with the overview of the tools with ProGrids. ProGrids is used to snap objects in the workspace of the scene view. It is a dynamically placed grid available on the 3 axes at any position in the scene. So it makes your object placement in your level consistent, making level construction fast, easy, and precise. It's also possible to customize it, like changing the color of your grid, the snap sizing, unit of measurement, and more. ProBuilder allows you to build, edit, and texture custom geometry in Unity. You can use it for level design, prototyping, also on final assets if the art direction of your game is minimalistic and doesn't involve complex geometry. In that case, ProBuilder has also a powerful export feature that allows you to export your levels to any DCC tool, digital content creation tools like Maya or Blender, and easily tweak your models to add more detail and polish the model if needed. Polybrush enables you to blend textures and colors, sculpt meshes, and scatter objects directly in the Unity editor. Combined with ProBuilder, Polybrush gives you a complete in-editor level design solution. Shader graph. Now, creating shaders has always been thought of as something only programmers can do. Not only programmers actually, advanced programmers. With shader graph, it's not the case anymore, as it's a visual tool that gives you results in real time, so no need to press a back button and wait, and no programming skills required, so it's easy and quick. Now you may be already asking, what render pipeline should I choose? And the answer is scriptable render pipeline. Now a quick reminder of what it is. Scriptable render pipeline allow you to control rendering via C# scripts, giving you a very high degree of customization. I want to mention that ProGrids, ProBuilder, Polybrush are all compatible with built-in and SRP, but some tools like shader graph require to use SRP. And when it comes to SRP, we have 2 options. The first one is custom, so you create your own SRP from scratch, or in Unity we created 2 pre-built ones for you. There is the URP and the SGRP. URP, Universal Render Pipeline, previously known as LWRP, Lightweight Render Pipeline. I love to call it the best of both worlds because it gives you beautiful visuals while keeping it performant for all Unity platforms from mobile to VR. And then SGRP, which is the High Definition Render Pipeline, gives you high fidelity visuals for consoles and PC, so high fidelity graphics for high-end platforms. Now, if you already started a project using built-in and you want to upgrade to URP to be able to use shader graph, for instance, I recommend this talk from Unite Copenhagen 2019, which you can find on the Unity YouTube channel, and it focuses on this topic about how to upgrade your existing project to the URP. As for the assets used, today I'll be using Jean Lemon Hunt Junt from Unity Learn and Windridge City. And it's time to dive into the demo already. So let's get started with the demo. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Window, Package Manager, and then make sure that I have ProGrids imported. If you go to Advanced, you can check Show Preview Package, so you can see packages in preview like ProGrids. Then import also ProBuilder. And then we will also need Polybrush. So make sure that you import it, but make sure that you also import the samples that are compatible with the render pipeline you're using. So in this case, I'm using URP. I already imported it, but if you're using built-in or SGRP, make sure to import the sample into your project because you will need some shaders that exist in the samples later. And also we will need shader graph. So make sure to import it as well. Now to get started, if I go to tools, I have the 3 tools that I just added: ProGrids, ProBuilder, and Polybrush. Let's start with ProGrids. I'm going to enable the ProGrids window. And now I'm going to just create a small cube to test it. You can see that we can toggle the different views, so you can see the different axes you want. You can see all of them at the same time. Here you can enable and disable ProGrids. You can also enable and disable the view of the grids. You can also either move it this way, or if you want the grid to move along with the cube, you can toggle this lock here. I'm going to disable it for now. And if I click here, I have some other options like the snap value, the snap on scale. So if I put this to 1, for instance, and move to the scale, you can see that it's actually snapping on the scale as well. I'm going to revert it back to 0.1. You have other options, so feel free to play around with this. Also, a shortcut for the snap value, so you press plus or minus, it's gonna increase or decrease the value. Okay, let's remove this, and I'm gonna hide the grids for now. So the second tool that I wanted to show is ProBuilder. So let's go to ProBuilder window here. Once I have it, make sure that I add it here. I love to put it on the top, but feel free to put it whenever you feel it suits your project. And now we're going to already start with creating a new plane. Here, let's say I'm going to make it 70 and 40 for the length. And I'm going to make no subdivisions for this case because I don't need them for now. Alright, now that I have this, I'm going to actually move a little bit the position and make it cool. So now that we have this, I would like to add a plan of the level that I have created. So if I go to my textures here, you can see that I have this level plan that I have created. So I want to put this here. First thing I want to do, I'm going to create a new material, and I'm going to call this material level plan. And then I go to textures. I'm going to drag and drop this into the base map. So now that we have this material, which is an universal render pipeline shader lit, you can see that we have some tiling here. You can go to the UV editor. And then we go from object selection mode to face selection mode, and we select this top face. And now we can try to put it to stretch. And this, you can already see it's a bit better. You have this option here that allows you to actually move like a 2D projection of the UV. You can also put the offset value if you want manually. So let's say we want to put it to yes. Now let's close this window, and here we go. We have this plan. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to disable the fact that we can click on it, so that way we don't confuse it with other game objects, especially that I'm just going to use it as a reference. So now I'm going to put a top view, and I'm going to even make it as isometric. Yes. And now we're going to start building those rooms. I'm going to show 2 ways of doing this. So let's start with the first way. In ProBuilder, you can create a new shape, again, like we created for the plane, or we can create a cube, for instance. Let's make it a cube, actually, this size. And now, if I go to the object selection mode, I can move it here. I'm going to put it in the corner. And then I'm going to put it to 0 for the while, so it sticks to the floor. And then we move to the face selection mode and stretch it this way. And also, I want it to be like the floor. So now I'm going to move from object selection mode to edge selection mode. And I'm going to select this edge. I'm going to put the perspective. Yes. And you can either click here to insert an edge loop. So we're going to move it to the border. Or you can use also the shortcut Alt-U or Option U for Mac users. And then we're going to do the same for this side. So Alt-U. So we can get like the 4 walls to extrude them. So now we move to face selection mode. We select those different faces on the border. And then you can either click extrude faces here, or you can do Control E, the shortcut. And you can see that we can extrude it this way, right? So now you can see that I have a door here. So I would like to probably again move to edge selection mode and Alt-U. I'm going to put it here and Alt-U again for this part. Now I can backspace to remove the face. Can remove it from this side and from this side as well. Can also remove it over here. Now you can see that we have these small holes. There is a way also to fill these holes by clicking on those edges. Select them all together on the border. So I need to select this one, yes. And now I do fill hole, and you can see that the hole is filled. We can do the same for the other part of the door. Fill hole, here we go. You can also do it with the bottom if you want. So this. And again, fill hole. Here we go. We have this room, and we can see the walls from the exterior and the interior. Now this is a way to do it, but I also have another way, which I prefer personally because it's a bit quicker for me to do. So I'm going to go to a new poly shape here. And now I'm going to start placing those vertices at the different parts of the room. So as you can see, it's quickly easy to place, and you can adjust the position of a vertex if you think that it's not on the right place. So there is always a way to somehow, let's say, revert back or tweak it again. Yeah. Here we go. And yes, now we have this. If I put it to 0 position so we can see it. Perspective. So here you can extrude like we just did, or you can use the extrusion here option. I love to use this one. It's this way. Now we can see that it's extruded, but we can also flip the normals with just one click from here. You can also do it from here as well if you want, from the toolbar. And now you can notice that I place it vertices wherever we have doors, so it becomes easier to remove them later. So again, we select the face, backspace, and then we can remove it. You notice that with this method, the walls render from the inside. So for instance, if I want to add walls for this room, I need to also place the vertices for the different parts of the room and have those facing the interior again, like this one. So this is two ways. If you want to have thick walls, you can use this. You can use this as well. I prefer this one because it's quicker for me. So to not waste more time doing this, I'm going to just disable these two, and I have prepared already my level here. And as you can see, we have this level already made using the second method I showed. Now, let's say at some point we're going to need to add enemies in the level. And we want to leave like a way to specify for the person doing the integration of the enemies to specify or illustrate which rooms will contain enemies. A way to do this, you can go to Tools again, ProBuilder, Editor, and then Open Vertex Color Editor. This will open this window for you. I'm going to place this window here. And now all the rooms where I will have enemies, or in my case, ghosts, I want to paint the floor with a different color, so we know it later. Let's say we're gonna put it to orange or red. So yes, this room, let's say also this room will contain an enemy. This room also, the corridor. And here also around like the end. You can also add an enemy here, make it even more scary. So yeah, now it's easy to see where we need to put the enemies. Now, if I click on one of those rooms, you can notice that I have this default ProBuilder material assigned. This is a material I have created. So I created default ProBuilder, which uses the Polybrush Lightweight Render Pipeline Lead Vertex Color shader. So this shader comes with the samples that I asked you to import with the Polybrush package. And then you can see in the albedo, I dragged and dropped this grid texture. If you type grid and make sure that you toggle this eye here to show hidden textures, you can find the textures that are provided by ProGrids. And this one you can use for the texture. But to be able to paint on, to use vertex colors, you need to also use this Lead Vertex Color LWRP shader. And if you go actually to edit preferences, you can see that for ProBuilder, we have a bunch of preferences that you can play around with, by the way, if you need. But you have also this material, which is the default material that you will use. So I created, again, this default ProBuilder material, but feel free to create your own if you want to use something else. And then we have also other options for ProGrids also that you can adjust from preference window. Now that we have this material assigned and we know how our level will look like somehow, let's start by putting some enemies. So I'm gonna have the enemies, which are the ghosts here, in those rooms that I have. And I will also have my main character, who's John Lennon here. And now before playing this to test it, let's just select those different rooms and let's go to Window, AI, Navigation. And then you can see that I have already set these different rooms to walkable, so the player can go through them. And if we go to Bake Window here, we can just press Bake and see the Navmesh created. So now our enemies and ghosts can move freely in the environment using this Navmesh. And we can already actually start testing. But let's say at some point I want to remove this room, for instance. I go to the inspector, I'm going to disable it, just bake again, and you can see that it's removed from the Navmesh. So it's really easy to iterate and test the gameplay with adding and removing different rooms. Also, this room, for instance, is supposed to be the bathroom. So in the bathroom, I would say I would like to have a bathtub. So I'm going to create a new shape, which is the cube. Let's just build this cube and put the position on the y-axis to 0. And then on the object selection mode, let's move it here. And I'm going to just stretch a little bit here to make it look a little bit like a bathtub, even though it doesn't really look like a bathtub. This is just, a prototype. So we have it here. If I select it and I go to navigation, and in the object here, I mark it as not walkable. So if I go back to the Navmesh and bake, you can see that it's also taken in consideration that this place is unwalkable and our enemies will not be able to go there. So yeah, this is super flexible to test. So let me actually test the level. So I'm gonna press play. Let's get started. All right, I'm gonna wait for the ghost to move. And now we can see our character already moving around, testing this level. And you can keep moving on, like hiding in this room and then move forward in the game to play. Okay, so now that we have the prototype of our level created, let's say that the artist brings the assets and we are going to integrate them. So here if I go to my environment folder, I can find the corridor folder, and here I can find the different walls that we can start integrating. So let's say we're gonna put this wall here, and I'm gonna actually stick it to the floor. Okay, and now I'm going to duplicate this one, and as you can see, it's snapping with the progress. We're gonna do the same this part of the wall, and you can add this, for instance, for the corners of the wall. Yeah, that should be already good. So as you can see, you can keep doing this. So here our artist created these different parts of the wall. So it's more modular, so it's more flexible to later add more rooms or remove more rooms easily. But feel free also to just, take this game object or mesh and then export it into your DCC tool to make the final asset. And you can do this by clicking here on export. So you can choose the export format and the different options that you need. Also, if you need to export FBX format, you can just go to Window, Package Manager, and here let's find the FBX exporter package, and then you install it. This will allow you also to use FBX format. You can also use it, for instance, for the bathtub, export it, and then use the final assets. But here in this case, we had some modular walls made, so we can use this prototype as a guide. So now I'm going to just remove this actually, and I'm going to remove the prototype that we have created. And let's start adding the different parts of the level. So if I enable my level here, I'm going to start with the exterior walls. So the first step is to integrate these exterior walls that you can see. And then I am going to put the corridors, which are the interior walls here we have. You can see that we follow exactly the same plan. And here we have the end posts. You can add some dressing like the carpets and the frames on the walls. And then that we have all the corridors integrated, let's add the different parts. So for instance, the bathroom, we had the bathtub here. You can use it also as a reference to place the final assets. And now, for instance, we have this bathroom. We have also the bedroom and the dining room, which is here, is also integrated. So now we have all those different parts. I will also include the floors. So I have the floors here created, which are, I will disable this one actually, the reference, because we don't need it anymore. Yes. So now that we have actually the level all created already here, we're going to start using the next tool, which is Polybrush. So you can notice that here I have this empty room that I left empty for a reason, that I left it empty because I want to add like an interior garden here. So to do so, I am going to start by creating a new plane here, so a new shape. And then I'm going to choose plane. Then for the weight, let's say we're going to make it 8, 10 for length, that's fine. I'm going to add for the segments 15 for both the width and the length to make it with more subdivisions so we can have more geometry. Alright, so I'm going to actually put it to 0 here. You can actually also position it here the way you want it. And build, yes. So now the first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to Tools, Polybrush, and then open the Polybrush window. And then I'm going to use it here. So I'm going to put this a little bit down. Yes. And here we have different modes. So the first one is the sculpt on mesh mode. So you can sculpt. Here we have the smooth also. You can also paint vertex colors on meshes here. We have the one to scatter objects and the one to paint also textures on meshes. So let's get started already with the first one. For this one, let's say I want to put a little bit more, some height on the borders. So you just keep clicking. And here we are using a brush. So you can define the minimum, maximum for the brush. You can define the outer radius. You can define the inner radius and also the strength. So here I will show the shortcuts. So you can use Control for the outer radius, Shift for the inner radius, and then Control and Shift together for the strength. So I'm going to keep it maybe a little bit more smaller. Yes. And then I will just keep adding a little bit of height on the borders over here and there. So this way. Here we go. And then I have these options for the brush mirroring. So you can mirror it with the Z-axis or the X-axis or both at the same time. I'm going to disable it for now because I don't need it. And then we have this smooth tool. So let's say I want to smooth a little bit those after sculpting. You can smooth a little bit what we did. You can also, if we go back to the sculpt mode, for instance, here I want to press Control to have like a small hole or, go a little bit down in the geometry. And then I can use again the smooth to make it a little bit more homogeneous here. Cool. And then since we are using the default ProBuilder texture that I have here, which allow us to paint on the vertices, so I can start painting, for instance, with the colors here. We can, let's say, use some red for this path, and can play around with that. Again, you can adjust the brush, the size, etc., and work with that to achieve what you want. But for this case, I would prefer to use a texture. So as you can see, it tells that it does not look like the material supports the texture. So what we'll do is we're going to go back to our ProBuilder here folder. I am going to create a new material. I'm going to call it garden material. And this garden material, I will choose from Polybrush, Lead Texture Blend. So this will allow us to use different textures. So let me drag and drop it into our game object. And you can see that it's all white for now. But if we go back to this texture folder, I can add the grass, can add this dry grass here, the ground. I believe I have another ground texture as well. Yeah, this one. So let's say we want to use this one first, which is the grass. You can use flat, which will allow you to paint everything at one click. You can also use fill if you want to do it with faces. So let's say I want to change only these faces. You can do this with fill, or you can use the brush tool again. And with the brush, you can use it this way, for instance, to define the path. So we have a path here from this door to this door. I'm going to do it this way. Okay, so with this grass, I want to add some this texture a little bit here. All the borders. I'm going to do it here as well. And here. Again, you can adjust the size of the brush. So I'm going to do this a little bit smaller for this dry grass. I want to have some dry grass inside, like this hole here. You can blend them together easily. That looks super cool. Nice. Now that we have this created, we can start by scattering some game objects. So let me go to my prefabs folder, and you can have here, you can see I have some trees and these small flowers or grass. So I'm going to just select all of them and drag and drop them here in the palette prefabs that you can drag here. So at first I want to probably just put some trees. So I'm going to use this one and this one and this one. You can change also the probability to have each type of the tree. So let's say I want to have this more often, this less often. And then you can start placing it. Let's say I want to place a tree here. I want to place maybe another one here. Maybe we can also place one here. Yes, that's cool. maybe 2 trees. And then I have this kind of smaller tree, so I can either put this to 0 or I can just remove them if I don't want them to appear. And then I can have this kind of small trees here and there. And then I will start by adding this small. You can avoid the overlap here if you check it, but I prefer to have it overlapped with the other prefabs that looks more like homogeneous. So I'm gonna disable it again, and this corner needs to be a little bit more, yes, more grass here and there. And you can see you can easily paint. You can also remove with control if you think that you don't want that to be placed there. And a good thing about this, it's quite flexible because all those prefabs are added as children to the main plane. So afterwards you can select those prefabs like any other prefab and add, for instance, scripts to them so you can interact with them. Or so it's not like terrain. In Polybrush you can actually modify and adjust them after adding it. So I think we have a bunch of, yeah, that looks nice. Yeah. And again, we can select it. So for instance, I want to select this one. I want to change maybe the position a little bit, or I want to rotate it. So that's totally doable, and you can feel free to adjust those positions. Okay, nice. So now we have this created with Polybrush. We're gonna move to the next step. As you have seen, we have used ProBuilder at an earlier stage to prototype somehow. So here we are going to use it again, but on the final assets to iterate on the gameplay and add more stuff in this house. So you see, this house is a haunted, and I want to make it a little bit more scary. So maybe I want to add a hole here, and I have like a carpet like this moving into that hole. Let's just first here add some lights. Yeah, it looks better even for the garden. It looks better now. And now let's go back to here. Now I want to select the faces that I want to remove for the hole. But as you can see, this seems to be a little bit too big. So I'm going to add some edge loops. To do so, I'm going to select this edge, Alt-U to insert a new edge loop. This size seems to be okay, I guess. And then I'm going to add another edge loop from this side as well. Now if I select the faces again, it's a bit smaller and it's a bit bare. Let's do backspace to make it work, to remove. So now I will select those edges here, like the contour of this hole, because I want to add some thickness to the wood of the floor. So I'm going to do Control E to extrude, but I want to extrude it to the bottom. You can see with it's snapping with rotate. So I'm going to disable it, and here we go. And here I want to be able to extrude the faces that are close to the plank. So I want to do this. Alt-U to add an edge loop again on the plank, and another time here. So as you can see, now I can select the face from this plank and do Control E to extrude, and this may make it look like it's a little bit more broken. So I did this already on the different sides of this floor, and it looks like this. And now I want to add a carpet that will be falling inside this hole. So to add this, I'm going to do a new shape, make it in the 0 axis here, bring it here, yes. I want it to be a little bit larger, so let's say 1.5. And I want it to be really not very thick, so 0.05 should be okay. And 4 is good, I think, for the leg. Yes. Let me close this window. So I have created a material that is representing the carpet. So this material is called carpet wave. So I'm going to drag and drop it here. First thing, I'm going just to disable the move for now. And here you can see that we need to work with the UV editor to make the texture fit well with the object. So now you can see those different faces. I'm going to select all of them. And in this window, I'm going to, let's convert to manual, to fit UVs, even though it's still small, but I'm just going to put it here in the middle. And then I'm going to increase the size. And until it fits in the middle. So this face as well, I want it to be showing the same thing because I don't want to see the red carpet. I only want this blue. And then I will make this go here. This one I'm going to rotate it, which is the left side. As you can see, you can visualize this here. And we can do that. We'll do the same with this face as well, because I only want to see only that blue side from the side of the carpet. So that should be okay. Cool. I'm gonna select again this top face just because I think it's too thick. Yeah, now it's better. Now after doing this, I want to add some subdivisions in this carpet to make it to make that like curve effect later. So I'm gonna do Alt U again to add in the middle here as well, and here as well. Again, you can also add this side. All right. So now that we have this, what we'll do is we're gonna do face selection. I want to select all these faces, but because there is less faces in this side, I'm going to do it here. It's easier. So you can do Control, double click, and to select all those, the ring faces. And then you do Control again here to select the rest of the other faces that I have here. And once I have all of them selected, I want to select the inverse. So I will do Control Shift I, and this will select that, the other part. So now I'm gonna put it a little bit down. I am going to rotate it as well. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna put it down again a little bit. Let's rotate it again. Yes. Okay, now let's move back to the object mode so we can put it a little bit on the top. And now let's start selecting the faces here. Control double click and then move it a little bit here. Control double click for this part too. Just to keep that small like band or curvy visual to make it feel like it's falling actually. Okay, it's a bit better. So I'm gonna do the object mode selection mode here, and then I'm going to move this carpet into the hole like this. You notice that it's a little bit too big, so I'm gonna just adjust the scale. Yes. So now you notice that I'm also having this shader on the material is using this shader. I'm gonna dive into this shader and explain how it is working before showing you how to use it here. So edit shader, And then we can maximize, and then we can have a closer look into this. So now, for those who are not very familiar with shade graph, we mainly have three parts here. We have the graph itself with the different nodes, and you can notice that we have this PBR master node, which is the final node where we plug in everything that we want to visualize in our shader. And we have this main preview that you can toggle from here, and you can also right-click to change the shape. And we have also the blackboard that you can toggle from here, which contains the different properties that we are using in the graph. So you can press plus if you want to add a new type. And so here we have the visuals part and the shake effect part. The visual part is taking all those maps that we have into these PBR inputs, which is a subgraph, so a graph inside this graph. Let me double click to see it. So this is taking care of all the visual parts that we have in this for the carpet. But now I want to focus more into this shake effect and this visual part on the top. So here we have the albedo is taking this output from the branch, and this branch depends on this color view Boolean variable. So it means that this one is exposed, as you can see in the inspector, so you can see it and you can modify it from the editor. So here, if this value is true, we are taking the vertex color that we can visualize later if I show you, and we can also use this albedo when the result is false. So I want to check it when I want to see the vertex color, and when I uncheck it, I want to see the albedo, which is the texture that we have for the carpet. This will allow us to visualize the way that we are going to paint the shake effect. So the shake effect itself is taking the vertex color, which we split here using this split node to get these three values for vector 3 as an input for the multiply, because initially we have 4 values here, including the alpha. So this one is multiplied with the shake offset. So here, if it's black, so it's going to be 0 for the values of the vector 3, which will mean if we multiply it with the shake, we don't have any shake offset here. The result will be 0. We are not doing any offset. But when there is any other color, then it's going to give us something, and it's going to be that shake that we want, that value of the shake that we are trying to offset with. And here we are adding that offset to the position, which is the initial position of the vertex. So if I plug this here in the vertex position, it's exactly the same as if we didn't plug anything. It's like the one by default. So to the one by default, we add the offset that we have as an output from the multiply here. And the offset is created using a shake subgraph, which takes a shake frequency, a shake amplitude, and a shake axis, because I don't want to always move the objects on the same axis. Maybe sometimes I want to move them only on the X or on the Z, or, so it's super flexible. And this shake, let me dive into this subgraph, is using a frequency, so which we multiply with the time. Then we apply a sign to this time multiplied by the frequency, which we later multiply with an amplitude to get the amplitude of the effect. Here I have this preview node, which you can remove. You can just do this and it will work the same. And I'm multiplying this by this position, which I use as an input for the simple noise. So this will generate a noise from the UV of this input. And since the position is different for the different vertices, this allows me to have somehow like a randomness, or things will not really shake or behave exactly the same way because the positions are different. So it's just to add a little bit more customized effect. And the scale, you can also expose it if you want on the editor to be able to change it from the inspector. But here I just use the 200 value that I multiply later with the shake axis. So if, for instance, I have 0 on the Z axis, it's going to return the noise value on the X and on the Y, and it's going to return 0 on the Z axis. So there will be no shift or no offset on that axis. So we multiply these two parts together to get the output, which is the shake offset. If you press this button here, you can see the different outputs that you want to generate from this subgraph. You can add more, you can change the type, change the name, etc. So let me close this one, save, and now all that output, we plug it into the vertex position. So now if you go back to the scene, let me switch to the color view. And here I'm going to go to the color here and choose black. I'm going to put the strength of the brush to 1, and I'm going to use flood, and this will paint it all black. And this means that it will not shake even if we put 1 value for the shake axis now here. So to start shaking, we're going to start using some colors. Now the colors mean that if I use the blue, it's going to shake on the Z axis, as you can see here. If I'm going to use green, it's going to shake on the Y axis. And if I'm going to use red, it's going to shake on the X axis. So let's get started with this blue, for instance. I'm going to put a little bit less with the brush. Yeah. And now you can see that it starts shaking. If I improve a little bit, increase the amplitude and the shake frequency, and it's shaking on the Z axis. So let's say I want to shake on the red axis, which is the X. I'm going to do this here. And you can see that it's moving right and left. And this way you can see it better. And if you use the green as well, it's going to shake a little bit on the top. So going from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to put a little bit less of strength. You can also adjust the brush size. And I'm going to do some green here, just to add like a little bump effect on those places here that are on the blank wood. And here I'm going to maybe put a little bit more of blue color to make it wave to the exterior to this way. And now you can see that you can play around with this and play around also with the amplitude, shake, and frequency. And you can switch easily between the view using the carpet and the view using the colors. You can even add here other checkboxes using Boolean variables to only visualize the different channels of colors. So you can visualize the red color, which will represent the X axis shake, or the Y for the Y axis shake, the green, or the blue for the Z axis shake. And you can separately do that. Or if you want to also paint them separately, you can use the mask here, the R, G, or B mask is to only paint on one specific channel. And now if we go back to this color view, you can see that we have this. I have also another carpet that I have already here, like this one. But yeah, feel free to play around and create your own custom effects. You can also use it for a glow effect or not only shake effect. You can always try other effects with that. So now that we have everything added here, I'm just going to add the VFX to have this fog effect here. And let's add some global post-processing. And let's press play to test it. So now you can see this. I have also the sound. I'm going to unmute it. You made it. And I think that's all for the demo. Let's move back to the slides. So thank you so much for attending this Unite Now session on faster level design iteration with ProBuilder and Polybrush, combined with Shader Graph as well. I hope you enjoyed it, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if you would like to share your creation with ProBuilder and Polybrush with me. You can also post questions on the forum in the Unite Now thread related to this talk. I will be there to answer along with developers from the team. Thanks again, and see you for another talk.